What's up, you guys? Just wanted to hop on here and make a quick video on the MK18 MOD1, otherwise known as the Block II. I'm going to start off with a little bit of short historical context and then dig into some parts that we have on this near clone setup. And we will also be doing a video on the M4A1 Block II, which is the upper receiver on the top here. So stand by for that one. Just looking forward to getting into the cloning world, providing the information I do know, and learning more information from you guys. So this video is not just for me to spread information or disinformation, but I also will have some questions at the end here. So if you are a cloning nerd, or you know a good amount of cloning stuff, yeah, please check out the end. I might have some questions for you, just looking to expand the knowledge. If you are new to cloning, I hope this video helps you. Getting into the cloning rabbit hole, the MK18 is probably one of the most popular rifles that is cloned out there. Rightfully so, given that it is used across so many different branches and just has an insane amount of sex appeal. So we're gonna pull down the MK18 here and have a closer look at it. Some of these parts on these builds might not be 100% clone correct. Still trying to source some things personally. Anyways, enough yapping, let's get into it. So real quick before we get into the video, gotta give a quick shout out to myself, Hefty Arms. So if you guys are looking for a rifle sling, we make rifle slings, and we have a few other products on the website that you might find interesting. I'll have the link in the description, or you can go to heftyarms.com and check them out. I'm very confident that you guys would like these things. Anyways, let's get into the video. So the MK18 MOD1 is essentially an updated version of its predecessor, the MK18 MOD0. While both rifles share the same compact design with a 10.3-inch barrel, the MK18 MOD1 offers significant improvements over the MOD0 in terms of customization and some adaptability. The MOD1 was built to handle some more specialized accessories and just have some more ergonomics versus the MOD0. Hence the Block II program, which brought in a variety of accessories, which we will get into in this video. If you want to learn more about the MOD0, there's some other videos on YouTube you should definitely check out, and eventually we'll be doing a video on it too. So got to give a quick shout out to Inferior Rifles. Very good information from that guy. Good page, good quality videos. We love to see it. And also shout out to Clone Rifles. It's a very great website if you're looking to clone your own rifle. They have a bunch of parts lists on there and things you would need to have a near clone or a proper clone setup. Starting at the end, we have the suppressor. Originally, the Block II would be using the Surefire SOCOM 556 suppressors. Those are a little bit harder to come by these days and have been phased out with the RC2. So the RC2 might not necessarily be clone correct for certain builds, but it is close enough for many people. And that's what we have here on this one. So the RC2 was part of the Block II package, and the RC2 Mini was later phased in and was more often seen on 14.5 rifles, as that can is shorter and just developed for the 14.5. Another suppressor that is very prevalent within the Block II program is the Knights Armament QDSS NT4. This one was used in particularly with the MARSOC teams or the Marines, versus the other suppressors would be used throughout the rest of SOCOM, so that would be Navy SEALs and Army Rangers, guys like that. So the biggest difference between a Marine Corps build and an Army build, for example, would be the suppressor. That's the most noticeable difference you could see within a MK18 build. Along with the differences in suppressors, there would also be the different uses of flash hiders. So the Surefires would obviously be paired with a Surefire 3-prong or 4-prong flash hider, while the Knights Armament cans would be paired with a Knights Armament flash hider. So as mentioned earlier, the barrel in these would be a 10.3-inch barrel, not a 10.5. So there is a difference, and you could tell by the gap between the handguard and the suppressor. So if there's a large gap between the handguard and the suppressor, you can easily notice if someone's running a 10.5 versus a 10.3. Some guys run 10.5s, call their guns clones. If you want to be clone correct, it would be a 10.3. And basically when they were developing that barrel, they found that 10.3 inches was the shortest you could go with a 5.56 before you start introducing problems like malfunctions, and not only malfunctions, but ballistics. But yeah, it's a Colt 10.3 inch barrel with a Daniel Defense Mark 12 gas block. The gas port on the barrel is .070, and the gas tube is a Colt carbine length gas tube. I know it's hard to see, guys, but basically the government profile barrel right here is much smaller, lighter weight versus the Colt SOCOM barrels. So SOCOM profile barrels are much heavier duty. They can withstand a higher firing cadence, and that's what I have in the M4A1 Block II, which we will go over in the next video. But this one here is the government profile. Moving on, we have a Knights Armament flip up front iron sight. So these are very expensive front iron sights, unfortunately, but they are well worth it. When it comes to weapon lights, there's a bunch of different variants that were used on the Block IIs. This one here is an Insight M3X in FDE, which was later phased out for the Insight WMX 200, which was a much better performing light. This one puts out, I think, 125 lumens, and I think it's a halogen, and it is very weak. It has low battery time. This is the weapon light. Now, obviously we do have the other lights on in here, which are very bright, but yeah, that's what you get out of this thing. It's not much. Strictly vibes though, strictly vibes. Half of cloning is for the vibes. You know, you're not always getting the superior rifle when you are cloning a weapon, you are going for the vibes, right? It's like having your own little piece of history. Insight M3X, Insight WMX 200, and there is also various Surefire scout lights that were used. So you could use the M600 series, the M300 series, and then like how we have on the M4A1 here, there is the Surefire, the KM3, which had IR and LED. So better performing light, much heavier. It's got this QD latch on it, very bulky, much heavier. Moving on from the light, we have our laser unit. So this one here is a PEG 15. There are some other lasers that were used out there. The PEG 15 also saw a later upgrade with the LA5, which is essentially the same version, just had some small improvements. And then the Marines or MARSOC would be using the PEG 16. So that is another way you could discern a MARSOC build versus build that the rest of SOCOM is using. Going back to the weapon light, we do have the push pad here, which is interfaced, this is from Insight as well, is interfaced with the PEC unit and the flashlight. A lot of guys would run these on the side. However, personally, I prefer to run this on the top. I think it's much more convenient to have the push pad on the top. That way, if I'm going, if I need to go ambi, switch sides, switch to my non-dominant shooting hand, I can still activate my light and laser. Now, how could we talk about a Mark 18 Block II without talking about the handguard? So the Block II is essentially the handguard. I mean, the biggest noticeable thing about a Block II rifle is the handguard from Daniel Defense. So there's some with the Savannah, Georgia markings, which are a little bit harder to come by. And then there's the Black Creek, Georgia markings. This one I also got from Littlebyrdprocurement. It was a surplus rail, but it was actually new, not even used, which is crazy to me. But you'll see the markings generally right along here with NSN number and cage code and Daniel Defense. These are very sturdy handguards. Yeah, 6 screws on each side to mount them. And yeah, they're very beefy. They don't get piping hot like the M-Lock handguards. And real quick, I'll show you. This is the M4A1 upper. And this one is also a Black Creek, Georgia handguard. And it's got the date code stamped on it right here, 17th December, 2010. I always find it interesting to see the different coloration between the handguards. This one's from 2010, is much lighter than this one. Now, I'm not sure if it's just because of different production runs, different timing, but the upper receiver on this M4A1 has gone purple. I've heard that's because of just being out in the sun for so long. So I'm assuming this one also just has some discoloration to it from being in the sun. Another thing that's kind of funny when I was building these uppers out is this one, I ended up with a bunch of used parts other than this, which we'll talk about soon. This one, on the Mark 18, I just ended up getting all new parts somehow, which is crazy to me because I really like the patina on this rifle. I like how it's all used up. You know, this video is gonna be a good video for me to just look back on and look at the rifle and, you know, admire like, wow, I had a mint piece at one time. But stay tuned because I'll do an update video, you know, maybe a couple of months or a year from now and show you guys what's going on with this build and how it's looking. So yeah, that's the handguard. It's basically a quad rail Picatinny handguard. Sorry for going on that tangent there, but that is what we get. It is a cheese grater of a handguard. Sometimes you'll see the ergo grips, which are the rail covers that would go on there. Another thing we should talk about, which I don't have on this build, is a foregrip. So typically you would see anything from a tango down grip. It could be a full size grip, a stubby grip. There's the Knight's Armament vertical grips, the broom handles. As you saw on the 14.5, that one had the Magpul angled foregrip. And then there's also the Lenko Tactical grip stop. Quite a various amount of foregrips that were used on there. Personally, I'm enjoying using this without any foregrip. Moving on from the handguard, we have the upper receiver. This one here is a Colt cage code upper receiver. Other upper receivers that are clone correct would be the C-stamped upper receiver and the Colt keyhole upper receiver. As far as I'm aware, Colt is no longer producing the cage code upper receivers with the numbers right there. I don't know how correct that is. I heard that from someone on social media. So this would be one of my questions I asked the cloner guys. Are these uppers still available? I'm sure you can get them used, of course, but I'm not sure if Colt is still selling them or to the civilian market or even producing them. But I know for sure you can still get the keyhole uppers. Those would still be clone correct. And then, yeah, basically you just have your standard mil-spec dust cover and forward assist. For the optic on this guy here, we have the EOTech EXPS3-0. Now this isn't particularly clone correct. The proper optic for this would be a EOTech, it's the SU231 Alpha. And there is a couple variants of those. There's the NavC variant, and there's the older one, which is more predominant on MARSOC builds, which is, it says L3 Harris on it versus having EOTech on there. So basically the difference you'd be getting in the EXPS3-0, this one, versus a clone correct variant is the markings that are on it. And I think that the shade of FDE on the hood was slightly less bronze and was more just tan, kind of like this or here. Moving on from the EOTech, that is not the only optic that could be used on these guys. They also were distributed the older EOTech models, and there was also the Spectre Elcan, which is what we have on the 14.5. And since I have the EXPS3-0 on here, I paired it with an EOTech magnifier. So the magnifier here is actually the EOTech M33. And I got this as part of a contract overrun that T-Rex Arms got a deal with. And I jumped on it as soon as they started selling them because I knew, well, I had never seen these before, so just had to jump right on it. But essentially the difference between the G33 and the M33 is the knobs. So the M33 has caps on its knobs. So these are actually protecting the adjusters for your, I guess, is 0 on the magnifier, versus the G33 right here. You actually would twist these to adjust, and you know, these could get bumped accidentally and you could lose your focus on your dot. Versus the M33, these are caps that are tethered off, so you have the tether, and you actually have to take off the cap and then make your adjustments. Another way to note the difference between an M33 and G33 is the UID tag that is pasted on to the side of the M33, and it has the part number and the cage code and a QR code. The M33 does not have any of that. On the side here, we have a close quarters defense sling mount for clash hooks or tying down with paracord. Definitely an essential for anyone doing a clone build. On the rear here, we have a Knight's Armament flip up rear iron sight. This is one of the clone correct iron sights. However, you could also get the Maytech or MOD-Tech iron sight for the rear. They are a bit bulkier. However, they are much cheaper than the Knight's Armament iron sights. As for a bolt carrier, we are using a Colt C-marked bolt carrier. I think there's a difference. There's some laser marked ones and there's also some stamped ones. But either way, it would be correct. And then we have a PRI gas buster charging handle. So the gas buster basically has these bolstered sections on the rear, which kind of help gas from going into your face, especially when shooting suppressed, there's a lot of gas. And then it's also got this channel cutout, which helps direct gas away from the shooter. You know, not the best gas busting charging handle on the market these days, but at the time it was a significant upgrade over the mil-spec charging handle, which by the way, mil-spec is also clone correct and a much cheaper option. I do enjoy the combat latch on this one. It is easy to grab and much more comfortable than the mil-spec charging handle. So there is the PRI enhanced latch, and then there's also the PRI combat latch. So this one has serrations on it, and is slightly larger, and this one is much more comfortable if you ask me. Moving on from the upper receiver, just want to quickly talk about the lower receiver. So typically you would see a Colt lower receiver or an FN lower receiver. Colt seems to be more popular out of the two, and this is what I'm cloning here. Thoroughbred Armament makes a good near clone lower. Arrow was a decent option for a near clone lower. You could go the cheaper route by getting something that has the M4A1 property US government markings on it. It's enough to get you by. I know some people would rather buy a $800 lower first and then get the rest of their stuff, but for me it wasn't worth it. I wanted to get a gun in hand and start training with it. And I'm not saying this is my only rifle that I'm training with, but you know, I wanted to get this project kicked off, so I just got a cheaper lower for now. That's what we would call as a near clone lower because it just matches the mil-spec vibe, but it is not an actual correct part number. And in fact, this is also wrong because I am in search of a Colt ambi safety, and this is an FN ambi safety, and I'm cloning a Colt lower. So that's a big, I'm pretty sure that's a big no-no on my end. This would be one of my questions I ask the fellow cloners out there. Would we ever see an FN safety on a Colt lower? I don't know. I guess just kind of depends, I guess. Moving on from the lower, the trigger. So typically you would see a mil-spec trigger, or you would also see the Geisley trigger. I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's the full auto Geisley trigger because obviously their guns would be machine guns and not semi-automatic rifles. But the closest clone correct trigger that you could get is a Geisley SSAE. Now this is a phenomenal trigger, has a great break to it. Definitely recommend this as a part to get for your near clone versus a mil-spec trigger especially. Then there is the mil-spec trigger guard, which is very flat, and the Colt A2 grip. So there's also other brands that made the A2. So yeah, I guess you could get any A2 grip. Now there's this gap here on the trigger guard and the pistol grip. It gets uncomfortable over time. However, you kind of get used to it. Moving back from there, we have a Colt 4-position buffer tube. Got this one from Charlie's Custom Clones. You could also get it at some other places, I believe, but that's where I got it. Colt H2 buffer. You could use a Colt H buffer and carbine spring. And then once again, we see close quarters defense. This is their back plate for mounting your sling if you're going to be using clash hooks. When it comes to stocks, you would see anything from the LMT SOP mod, which is a little bit harder to find. The near clone variant of that would be the B5 Systems SOP mod stock. That is the government version, the one that does not have the Sling QD on the rear. And then you could also see the Magpul CTR stocks, various models like that. The Colt car stocks, those were another option on there. But that's pretty much it for the most part. I think I've seen some dudes running the Volter stock as well, but I don't know for sure. So that's pretty much it for the Mark 18. Stay tuned for the M4A1 video coming up next time. And now I'd like to go on and just ask a couple questions to any of the clone homies out there, so you guys could drop them in the comments for me. So the main question I have for any clone dudes out there is regarding this riser. So I really want to put a riser on, you know, preferably the Mark 18 here. And I'm not sure what's clone correct. I just really like risers. It's just a little more comfortable for me to shoot. I have a LaRue LT101, I believe this one is. It's a 5/8 riser. I have seen these being used on the newer URGIs. I think I saw it on an 11.5 URGI. But I was curious if this is clone correct for the Mark 18 Block II. Definitely interested in running this. So if you know if this was used, or if you have any pictures of it being used or seen anyone, let me know. Drop a comment or shoot me a DM. Definitely curious. Yeah. My next questions for the cloners out there is, where can a brother get a PEC-16? The goal for this is to eventually turn it into a full MARSOC build and then do a video comparing this to other SOCOM builds. So curious if anyone has a PEC-16 out there. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you like the content, make sure to drop us a like, drop us a subscribe so you can stay tuned for more content. And we will see you next time where we talk about the M4A1 Block II. Now, if I said anything wrong in this video, I apologize. I'm still, you know, getting into the YouTube swing of things. By no means an expert. And I'm also still learning about clones and stuff. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not just here on the internet to spread disinformation. But you know, this is a place for, you know, a little bit of knowledge transfer. I'm learning. Hopefully I taught you something new if you are, you know, new to cloning. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.